The Galactic Academy of Warfare Arts was the oldest school in the known universe. It had trained soldiers and warriors from 100 different alien species for over 12,000 years. The building was massive, floating in space like a small moon. Its walls were made of metal that could survive anything. Its halls had seen the greatest military minds in history walk through them. Every year the Academy held its final examination. This test was famous across all galaxies. The rules were simple but cruel. Each student was placed alone in an empty room. The room contained nothing but tiny particles floating in the air, held still by special energy fields. The students had 6 hours to use these particles to build a weapon. If the weapon was good enough, they graduated. If not, they failed. Instructor watched the screens that showed all 37 examination rooms. Was a strange creature to human eyes. His body was made of crystal bones covered in silver flesh that moved like water. He had taught at the academy for 3,000 years and had seen thousands of tests. He was bored. The students were making plasma swords, as they always did. The students were building acid guns from pieces of their own shell, as they always did. The students were shaping light into cutting beams, as they always did. Everything was normal and predictable. Then looked at room 38. The human sat there doing nothing. His name was, he was 26 years old and came from a small human colony on the edge of known space. He was the first human ever allowed to study at the academy. Most of the instructors had voted against letting him in. Humans were weak. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Their bodies broke easily. They lived short lives. But the academy had rules about accepting any species that applied, so was admitted. The other instructors had made bets about him. Most thought he had a 12% chance of making anything useful. Some thought he had 0 chance. A few had bet that he would cry and give up within the first hour. For 60 minutes just sat on the floor with his eyes closed. He breathed slowly and did not move, shook his head. The human had already given up. How disappointing but not surprising. Then the human opened his eyes. He smiled, leaned closer to the screen, suddenly interested. Did not reach for the floating particles. He did not try to grab the energy fields. Instead, he pressed his 2 hands together and rubbed them back and forth. Fast, faster. The friction created heat. Just a tiny amount of heat, but it was there. The human cupped his hands together, protecting that small warmth like it was precious treasure. He leaned close and blew gently on his palms. His breath was warm and full of oxygen. A spark appeared. Fire. Had made fire from nothing but his own body and the air in the room. Other instructors began to gather around screen. Instructor pushed forward, her body glowing with confused light. She was from a species that communicated through colors, and right now her colors showed complete confusion. "What is the human doing?" she asked. Nobody answered because nobody knew. Worked slowly and carefully. He pulled threads from the edge of his uniform. He tore small pieces from his sleeve. He even pulled out some of his own hair and braided it together. He fed these things to his tiny fire, keeping it alive, making it grow just a little bit bigger. 2 hours passed, 3 hours, 4 hours. The other students in their rooms were almost finished. They had built beautiful weapons, guns that shot energy beams, swords that could cut through anything, shields that exploded when touched, all very impressive, all very deadly. In room 38 had built a torch. It was ugly. It was simple. It was just a stick of wrapped cloth and braided hair, burning with an orange flame. It looked like something a cave person would make 1,000,000 years ago. The instructors stared at the screen in silence. "That cannot be a weapon," said instructor. He was a master who had built the most famous sword in academy history. "It is a burning stick, nothing more." "Fire can hurt," said slowly. "Fire can kill. Does that not make it a weapon?" "A rock can kill. We do not give marks for rocks." raised his crystal arm to silence them. He was watching the human very carefully now. There was something in the human's eyes, something that made ancient instincts whisper warnings. Walked to the window of his examination room. He held up his torch so all the watching instructors could see it clearly. The flame danced and flickered, casting wild shadows on the walls. Then the human spoke. His voice was calm and clear. It carried through the speakers into the observation room where dozens of alien instructors stood frozen. You need it mercy safe or war ready. Nobody understood the question. Felt something he had not felt in 1,000 years. He felt curious, truly, deeply curious. The examination rules said students could not be interrupted during the test, but had been teaching for 3,000 years, and he had never seen anything like this. He had never heard a question like this. He made a decision. Stop the examination, commanded. Bring the human to the grand analysis chamber. I want to hear him explain. The other instructors looked at in shock. This had never happened before. No student had ever been pulled from the examination for questioning. But was senior instructor, and his word was law. In room 38, lowered his torch and smiled. The flame kept burning. It had been burning for 4 hours now, fed by nothing but air and scraps and the human's endless patience. He had known they would come with questions. That was the point. The grand analysis chamber was the largest room in the academy. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Its walls were covered with screens showing weapon designs from 10,000 years of history. 17 senior instructors sat in a half circle, their combined ages adding up to more than 40,000 years of life. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had trained warriors who conquered entire galaxies. Now they all stared at one human, holding a burning stick. Stood in the center of the chamber. He was small compared to the alien instructors around him. Alone was 3 times his height. Instructor had hands that could crush stone. Instructor glowed so bright that had to squint when looking at her. But he did not seem afraid. He held his torch steady, and the flame never wavered. This is a waste of time, said. His voice was deep and angry. The human made a primitive tool. It means nothing. Send him back to finish the examination and let us return to our duties. He asked a question, replied, I want to understand it. What is there to understand? Fire is fire, it burns, that is all. Turned his crystal face toward the human. Explain your creation. Tell us what you made and why. Lifted the torch higher. The flame painted orange light across his face. This is fire, he said. His voice was calm, like a teacher speaking to students. My species discovered it about 400,000 years ago. It is the oldest technology humans have. It is where everything started for us. Made a sound like grinding rocks. Technology. A chemical reaction is not technology. Fire is just burning. Any fool can make something burn. With respect, instructor, everything is a chemical reaction, including you. The chamber went silent. Several instructors shifted uncomfortably. No student had ever spoken to that way. Continued as if he had not just insulted one of the most powerful beings in the room. Fire is the technology that made humans possible. Before we had fire, we were prey. We were food for bigger, stronger animals. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. We were weak and soft and easy to kill. He paused and looked around at all the aliens watching him. After we had fire, everything changed. We became the most successful hunters our planet ever saw. We spread across our world. We changed our world. Fire made us what we are. You still have not answered the question, said. Mercy safe or war ready? What did you mean by these words? Smiled. It was a strange smile. Not happy, not sad. Something older. Something that held thousands of years of human history in its curve. In mercy-safe mode, he said slowly, this torch gives light in darkness. It gives warmth in cold. It lets us cook food so we do not get sick. It cleans water so we can drink safely. It sends signals so lost people can be found. It shapes metal so we can build tools. It clears land so we can grow food." He lowered the torch slightly. "Fire is hope. Fire is survival. Fire is how civilizations begin." The instructors listened in silence. Some of them had never thought about fire this way. To them, fire was just a chemical reaction, something basic and unimportant. "And war-ready mode?" asked. The humans' eyes changed. Something dark moved behind them. Something that remembered burning cities and screaming people and the smell of ash. "In war-ready mode," said, "this torch is how we burned cities to the ground. It is how we destroyed forests so our enemies would starve. It is how we made bombs that could split atoms themselves. Fire is how we nearly killed our own world. Fire is the reason humans are the most dangerous species we know." He lifted the torch again, and now it looked different. The same flame, the same simple tool, but now everyone in the chamber could see what it really was. "You asked me to forge a weapon from nothing," said. "I forged the weapon that forged my entire species. This torch is not just fire. It is a promise. It is a warning. It is a question that every human must answer every day for our whole lives." He turned slowly, making sure every instructor could see his face. "Mercy or war, creation or destruction, help or harm. The fire does not care, the fire just burns. The choice belongs to the one who holds it." He stopped turning and faced directly. "So I ask you again, instructors, what do you need it to be?" The chamber remained silent for a long time. Instructors' light had dimmed to almost nothing. Instructors' grinding sounds had stopped. Even, who had lived for 3,000 years, found that he had no words. Finally, a young instructor named Pale Voice spoke. She was a being made of pure light. "He is saying that the weapon is not the fire," she said slowly, working through the idea. "The weapon is the choice. The human forged a choice from nothing." Pointed at her with his free hand. "Yes, that is exactly what I am saying." Leaned back in his seat. His crystal body made soft chiming sounds as he moved. "In 12,000 years," he said quietly, "no student has ever made me question what a weapon truly is. Until today." Bowed his head slightly. The torch flame danced above him like a living thing. "Fire spreads," he said. "That is what fire does. Ideas are the same way." The Council of Masters did not believe in words alone. They had heard many speeches in their long lives. They had listened to many clever arguments, but words meant nothing without proof. They demanded a demonstration. The testing arena was a massive oval space deep inside the academy. Its floor was made of special material that could repair itself after any damage. Its walls could withstand explosions. Champions from 100 species had fought here. Wars had been decided in this place. Now stood alone in the center, holding his simple torch. 3 challenges waited for him. 3 tests designed by 3 different species. Each one was meant to prove that his burning stick was worthless. The first challenge came from instructor, and a block of was placed in front of, was the hardest metal in the known universe. Starship armor was made from. Even the Academy's plasma cutters needed hours to scratch its surface. "Your fire cannot harm this," announced from his viewing platform. "Prove me wrong if you can." Did not try to burn through he was not stupid. Instead, he asked for sand from the arena floor. The judges allowed this since sand was not a weapon. He built a small structure from the sand. It looked like a tiny oven. He tore more cloth from his uniform and made a bag that he could squeeze to push air. A bellows, humans called it. Then he began to work. He focused his torch's heat on one small spot of the block. He pumped air with his bellows to make the flame hotter. He did this for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. The judges grew restless. Some laughed. What was this foolish human doing? But was not laughing, was watching very carefully. He understood metal better than anyone in the academy, and he could see what was happening. The heat was spreading through not evenly. The spot where flame touched was getting hot, but the area around it was still cold. This created stress. The hot metal wanted to expand. The cold metal wanted to stay the same size. At the 4-hour mark, a crack appeared in the block. Then another crack. Then the block split in half with a sound like thunder. The arena fell silent. Heat difference, explained, breathing hard from his work. Everything has a weakness. Fire finds it. The second challenge came from a young warrior named stepped into the arena. There were insect-like beings with hard shells covering their bodies. Wore bioarmor, a living shell that could stop direct hits from energy weapons. He was young, but he was already famous for his strength. "Your flame will not get through my armor," clicked. His mandibles spread wide in what might have been a smile. "I will stand still and let you try." Shook his head. "I do not need to get through your armor." He began to circle slowly. He held his torch low, letting smoke rise up. He moved the flame back and forth, making the fire dance and flicker. Watched him with compound eyes. Each of his eyes was made of thousands of tiny lenses. This gave him excellent vision, but it also meant that flickering light was very confusing to him. The smoke rose higher. It filled the air around. The warrior began to cough. His breathing grew heavy. His eyes watered. He could not see clearly because the smoke and the dancing firelight made his compound vision useless. 3 minutes later, fell to his knees. "Stop," he gasped. "I yield, I surrender." Immediately moved the torch away. He helped stand and guided him to fresh air. "I did not need to break your armor," said. "I just needed to make you give up. That is mercy-safe mode." Looked at him with new respect, and war-ready mode. His face became serious. "War-ready, I would have set the air itself on fire. Your armor would have carried the heat to your body. You would have cooked inside your own shell." The third challenge came from the pale voice. The young instructor created a darkness field. It was a sphere of absolute blackness that absorbed all light. No beam could penetrate it. No glow could escape it. Inside the darkness field, there was nothing to see. "In total darkness, your fire is useless," pale voice said. "Light is what makes fire powerful. Without light, you have nothing." Nodded and walked into the darkness field. He disappeared completely. The observers could not see him at all. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a sound came from inside the darkness. Humming. A simple tune, the kind a mother might sing to a child. Rock struck rock as hit 2 stones together. Sparks flew, but the darkness swallowed them instantly. Yet the humming continued. Footsteps moved through the blackness. The smell of smoke drifted out. "Fire is not just light," his voice echoed from the darkness. "Fire is warmth on skin. Fire is the sound of burning. Fire is the smell of smoke. Even in perfect darkness, I know where my flame is. I can feel it. I can hear it. I can smell it. I do not need to see." He walked out of the darkness field from the opposite side. His torch was blazing brightly. He had navigated through complete blindness using only heat and sound and smell. The Council of Masters called for a 12-hour break to discuss what they had seen. Sat in the arena and waited. His torch burned steady and patient. He had proven his point. Now the council had to decide what to do about it. While the Council of Masters argued about his fate, walked to the Academy's meditation gardens. These gardens were famous throughout the galaxy. They held plants from 1,000 worlds. Waterfalls made of liquid light poured from floating rocks. Artificial stars sparkled on the ceiling far above. Found a quiet spot near a small pond. He sat on the grass and placed his torch beside him. The flame had gone out now. It was just a burned stick, black and ugly, but kept it close like a treasure. He was not alone for long. A young woman found him there. Her name was Sara. She was human-like, from the same colony world far away on the edge of known space. She had been studying at the academy for 3 years, learning tactical analysis. She was one of only 4 humans in the entire school. "Everyone is talking about you," Sora said, sitting beside him on the grass. "The whole academy. I have never seen anything like it." Smiled but said nothing. "They are afraid of you," she continued. "Half of them think you cheated somehow. The other half cannot stop arguing about what you did." "I did not cheat," said quietly. "I just played a different game than they expected." Sora pulled her knees up to her chest and wrapped her arms around them. "That is exactly what scares them. I have watched students here for 3 years. I have seen them make swords that can cut through starship metal. I have seen them build weapons that could melt mountains. I have seen them create beams of light that could destroy cities." She looked at the burned torch in his hand. "And you made a burning stick. And now everyone is more scared of you than of all those other weapons combined." Turned the charred wood slowly, studying it. "They could answer my question. They just did not want to." "What do you mean?" "Every species here sees weapons only as tools of war." His voice was soft but firm. "They design for maximum destruction, maximum killing power. That is all they know how to build. But humans—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Humans learned fire before we learned war. We learned that the same flame that burns a village can also cook food for children. The same fire that destroys forests can also clear land for farms. The same heat that kills can also give life." Sora listened carefully. She had known back on their colony world. They had grown up together, played together as children, but she had never heard him speak like this. "When they asked me to forge a weapon from nothing," continued, "I did not forge fire. I forged the choice itself. That is what makes humans different. We are the species that decided fire could be both things at once, mercy-safe and war-ready, and we have spent our entire history trying to decide which one to choose." He looked up at the artificial stars above them. "That choice is the real weapon. That choice is what makes us dangerous." Sora was quiet for a long time. The sound of liquid light falling into pools filled the silence. "The Council will fail you," she finally said. "You know that, right? They will say your torch does not meet the requirements. It is too simple, too primitive, too different from what they expected." "Maybe," did not sound worried. "Does that not bother you? You worked so hard to get into this academy. You traveled across the galaxy. You trained for years. And now they will send you home with nothing." Shook his head slowly. "I will not leave with nothing. I will leave with something much more valuable." "What?" A question that they cannot forget. He turned to face her directly. "Every instructor who watched me today will remember what I asked. Every student who heard about it will think about it. And someday, maybe years from now, maybe decades from now, one of them will face a real choice. They will have power to destroy or power to save. And in that moment, they will remember a human who held up a burning torch and asked them what they really wanted." Sora felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not fully understand why. "You did not come here to pass the test," she said. "You came here to teach them." Smiled. It was a warm smile, the kind that made Sora remember being a child on their distant colony, sitting around fires under strange stars. "Fire spreads," he said. "That is what fire does. It jumps from one piece of wood to another. It travels on the wind. It cannot be stopped once it starts. Ideas work the same way. I lit a small fire today in this academy. Maybe it will spread. Maybe it will change something. Maybe it will not." He picked up his burned torch and held it gently. "But even if this flame goes out, even if they fail me and send me home, the question will keep burning. That is enough for me." Sora reached out and took his hand. They sat together in the garden while artificial stars turned slowly overhead. Somewhere in the academy, the Council of Masters argued about weapons and rules and traditions. But here, by the pond, 2 humans shared a moment of peace, like their ancestors had done around countless campfires for hundreds of thousands of years. The torch was cold now, but its meaning still burned bright. The Council of Masters returned after 12 hours. Their decision was announced in the Grand Analysis Chamber, the same room where had first explained his burning torch. Instructor spoke for the council. His crystal body caught the light and scattered it into tiny rainbows across the walls. "Candidate," said formally, "the council has reached its decision. Your creation does not meet the technical requirements of the final examination. The torch is too primitive. It relies on biological elements that other species cannot copy. It does not show mastery of the particle-shaping techniques we teach here." Stood straight and kept his face calm. "Therefore," continued, "you have failed the examination. You will not graduate from the Academy of Warfare Arts." Some of the watching instructors nodded with satisfaction. Others looked uncomfortable. A few, including Pale Voice, and seemed almost sad. Bowed his head in acceptance. "I understand. Thank you for the opportunity to study here." He turned to leave. But before he reached the door, it opened. A crowd pushed through. Dozens of students from different species filled the chamber. Recognized the young warrior he had defeated in the arena. He saw Pale Voice's glowing form. He saw students from species he had never spoken to, beings with scales and tentacles and bodies made of mist. And at the front, leading them all, was Sora. "Teach us," said. His mandibles clicked with emotion. "Teach us what fire means." Stared at them in surprise. "I cannot teach here. I am not a graduate." "Then teach somewhere else," Pale Voice said. Her light flickered with eagerness. "The galaxy is larger than this academy. There are worlds and beings who need to hear what you have to say." A student stepped forward. He was young, barely past his first century. "My people have made weapons for 10,000 years. I have been trained since birth to build tools of destruction, but no one ever taught me that I had a choice. No one ever asked me if I wanted mercy safe or war ready." More voices joined in. Stories from different species. The who had been raised to become living weapons. The who were bred for war before they were born. The countless beings who had never been told that destruction was not the only path. Looked at them all. His chest felt tight with an emotion he could not name. Then Instructor stepped down from his platform, the ancient crystal being moved through the crowd until he stood directly before. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then bowed. It was a deep bow, the kind reserved for honored masters. No instructor had ever bowed to a failed student, not in 12,000 years. "I have studied warfare for 3,000 years, said. "I have seen weapons that could turn stars into dust. I have trained warriors who conquered entire civilizations. I have watched empires rise and fall. In all that time, no one has ever made me question what a weapon truly is." He straightened and looked into his eyes. "You failed the examination, but you passed a test that the Academy did not know it was giving. Go, take your fire to the stars. The galaxy needs to learn the question you asked." Felt tears on his cheeks. He wiped them away quickly. "What question is that?" he asked, though he already knew. "Mercy safe or war ready," replied. "Creation or destruction. The choice that your species made 400,000 years ago, around your first flames. The choice that changed you from prey into the most dangerous beings your world ever knew. That choice should not belong to humans alone." Left the academy that day. He carried nothing but the clothes on his back and his torch, relit one final time from friction and patience. Sara walked beside him, followed behind. Others joined them as they walked to the transport ships. News of the humans' demonstration spread quickly. Within a year was teaching on 7 different worlds. Within a decade, his students were teaching on 70 more. The question traveled from species to species, culture to culture, changing how people thought about power and choice. 50 years later, the Great Reconciliation began. After 10,000 years of galactic warfare, empires finally stopped fighting. Species that had been enemies for centuries sat together and talked. Peace spread across star systems that had known only destruction. When historians wrote about the Great Reconciliation, they traced its origins to many causes: political changes, economic needs, exhaustion from endless war. But some historians went deeper. They found records of a human who once stood in the oldest military academy in the universe and asked a question that no one could answer. They found stories of a burning torch made from nothing but air and hair and hope. They found the beginning of an idea that spread like fire through dry grass. Mercy safe or war ready? The question reminded the galaxy that every weapon was also a tool. Every act of destruction held the seed of creation. Every being with power had a choice about how to use it. Died at the age of 92, surrounded by students from 30 different species. His torch was placed in a museum, preserved forever. But the fire he lit never went out. It still burns today, in every being who faces the choice between harm and help, between war and peace, between destruction and creation. Mercy safe or war ready? The answer is always yours to give.